Hello, this is John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and I'm here today to talk to you about the Nightforce NXS F1 3.5 to 15 by 50mm rifle scope. Now, that's a mouthful, but everybody just generally calls it a Nightforce F1. There's only one power range for the F1 and really only one main feature set for the F1. So if you hear a Nightforce F1, this is the scope we're talking about. Now, I've been pretty excited to get the scope into my hands to do a review about it for quite some time. It has an excellent feature set that is really oriented towards the military or law enforcement tactical shooter. However, it's also a great rifle scope for tactical matches. We're going to go ahead and go over it front to back and let you know what I like about it and what features on it will benefit you as the shooter. First of all, you'll notice that it comes with these nifty bikini scope caps. So we're going to pull these off and set them to the side. Now, a real quick word on this scope right here. We have the Nightforce 20 MOA Unimount mounted up. It does not come with this mount. Nightforce sent us this mount at our request because we were testing it on the Accuracy International AE Mark II. The AE Mark II has a flat base and it really likes to have a higher scope mounting system. So the Nightforce Unimount works out great in that. It's more suited towards AR type platforms. Worked out great for us. However, the F1 does come with a set of rings. So you do get rings in the package, just not the Unimount. Now, we're going to start out at the ocular housing. That's this section that is closest to your eye. Now, one of the key features on Nightforce scopes is that in order to change the magnification on the scope, the entire ocular housing rotates. This has caused a little bit of debate. There are some guys that like it, some guys that don't like it. The reason behind this is that in combat situations or in harsh conditions, your fine motor skills can start to diminish. Additionally, if you're wearing gloves, if it's cold and icy, or if things are muddy, things tend to get a little slippery. So having to mess with a little tiny magnification ring is not the greatest thing. It's much easier to just grab the whole eyepiece and rotate it. Now, the drawback to that is you can't put on like standard Butler Creek flip-up scope caps, because if you do, when you go to rotate it, since the entire eyepiece rotates, the scope cap will bump into the side of the rifle on one side or the other. It'll get in the way of your bolt, etc. So it's important to use bikini eye covers on this. Not really a big drawback. It works as it was designed, so just have to keep the design in mind. Moving up from that, we have the Diopter Adjustment here. Now, the F1 employs the type of diopter adjustment that I really like. It's a locking diopter adjustment. In order to adjust the diopter, you back off this knurled ring right here behind the magnification ring, and then you can turn the entire eyepiece to get your diopter. For those of you that don't know, diopter is basically focusing the reticle to your eye. So it allows you to focus the reticle to your eye, and then once you get it to where you need it to be, you turn the locking ring back down and it jams against the eyepiece and locks it in so there's no accidental turning. I really like this feature on tactical rifle scopes. I don't like the fast focus eyepieces. Like, I'll grab the Weaver scope that we have sitting here for comparison. This is a fast focus eyepiece. You just grab a hold of it and turn it. There's no locking feature on it. It's very easy, especially when you have scope caps on it, to bump that one way or the other, and then your reticle's out of focus. If you've got good eyes, your eyes can make up for it a little bit, but they shouldn't have to. You should be able to lock this in and keep it there and not have to fiddle with it. Diopter adjustment is one of those things that you should be able to just set once and leave for a very long period of time. That is a great feature. Really like that. Coming forward is basically your magnification indicator. Since it's not a separate ring, it turns with the whole eyepiece. It's got your magnification markings set on here. As I said, this is a 3.5 to 15 power rifle scope. I really like that magnification range for tactical rifle scopes. 3.5 is low enough that if you're working within 100 yards, you still have a decent field of view, but you still have the ability to make a precision shot. This is something that's critical for law enforcement shooters. If you have a scope that has an incredibly high low magnification range, like say 9 power, 6 power, something of that nature, then you give up a lot of field of view. It's like looking through a toilet paper tube and you lose your situational awareness. You don't know what's going on outside of the tiny field of view of the scope. So it's important to have a wide field of view on a tactical rifle scope. The 3.5 low-end magnification gives you that wide field of view. Now on the opposite side, you have the 15 power maximum magnification, which even in a law enforcement situation where you're working in close range to the target, 15 power is nice because if the target becomes static, it allows you to dial in and really assess what you're looking at. There have been several situations where I've wanted to dial my magnification up to verify that that was a cell phone in his hand and not a small handgun, or vice versa. So it's important to be able to crank it up and really see the details, but still be able to go back and have that wide field of view. Now coming forward on the scope, we have a 30mm main tube, which I like the 30mm main tubes because they are a standard pretty much across the board on tactical scopes. It's very easy to find mounting systems and rings for 30mm tubes. When you start to get into the Mongo tubes, the 34, 35, there are even 36s coming out, you start to limit yourself on what your mounting systems available are. So I like the 30mm tubes as long as we're able to get the elevation that we need. The tube diameter, the body tube diameter, has nothing to do with light transmission. Larger tubes do not transmit more light. All larger tubes do is allow more room for the internal adjustments to move. If the scope was designed with a lot of internal adjustments on a 30mm tube, then you really don't need the larger tube. So 30mm tube's nice. Coming forward, we have a really nice small compact turret housing. This allows you a good deal of forward and back leeway when you're mounting the scope. It's not a big massive block that's going to get stuck between the rings on most mounts. So you can slide it forward and back, get a good bit of adjustment there. Onto the turrets. I really like Nightforce turrets. They're nice and compact, but they still offer you enough grip. The Elevation is equipped with a ZeroStop turret. We'll throw up a link to our other video where we demonstrated to you how to adjust the ZeroStop turret. Basically what a ZeroStop turret does is when you come all the way down to your zero, you hit a hard stop and you cannot dial the turret past your hard stop. The benefit of this is in low light, you can just grab the turret, slam it against the stop, and you know your scope is at its elevation 0. The other benefit is if you're shooting matches and you have to go for a really long shot and you've cranked that turret a couple of times and then you come off the line and you forget to dial your turret back down, when you get to the next stage, instead of trying to remember what revolution you're on, you just simply dial it all the way down until it hits a stop, and now you know you're zeroed out. Great benefit. The markings, these are the new high rev or high speed turrets from Nightforce, so they have 10 mils per revolution, which aids you in getting on your dope quickly. However, it does place the clicks a little bit closer together, so when you're dialing, you need to make sure that you're precise with getting it dialed in. I find with the high-speed turrets it's a little bit easier to overshoot your setting than with standard turrets, but that's the price you pay for having double the elevation come-ups on each turn. Moving over to the Windage Knob, I like the fact that on the Windage Knob they actually put right and left markings on each number. It's not just a set of numbers. You have 1R, 2R, 3R, etc., 1L, 2L, 3L. The clicks, like the elevation turret, are very precise. They're audible and tactile. You can feel them really well. One thing that I didn't like is that you can spin the knob all the way around and get off of your, you can actually turn it far enough that you're still going left, but now you're reading right again. So it's something you got to be aware of, that you only have 4 right and 4 left markings, and then the 5 is in the dead center. So you do have to keep track of which turn you're on windage. One word on the turret feel on the Nightforce scopes. I thought it was kind of funny. I was at SHOT last year, and as I walked up, Bill Bracken, one of the representatives from Nightforce, was standing there in the booth with one of these scopes, and he was just spinning it back and forth on the turrets. And it's really a testament to the durability in these turrets. You can really put them through a lot of turning, and the clicks are still precise. They still drop in exactly where you want them to be. So it's kind of interesting. They have a really nice feel when you spin them, and you get that little buzz as it goes around. Now we flip it over to the other side. We have a combination control as both the parallax and the illumination turret. The only complaint I have here is the parallax turret. It turns a little bit smoother than I would like it to be, or rather a little bit freer. It's very smooth, it's very easy to turn, but in the same vein, it's going to be difficult for you to set it and leave it alone. That's what I like to do when I'm shooting multiple engagements at varying distances. I like to set it in an intermediate setting and then leave the parallax alone. If you have to jump up with it and run from stage to stage, there's the possibility of bumping it and sliding it. That brings us to the second point, is there are no number markings on the parallax turret. It just has a set of lines. Now, while the numbers on most parallax turrets do not line up perfectly with where they're parallax free, the numbers are nice to give you a quick reference on where the turret's at versus trying to remember what line you're on. Now, I really like the illumination design on Nightforce's scopes. To turn the illumination on, you grab the turret and you pull it out, and it clicks audibly, and you can definitely feel it when you pull it out and the illumination is turned on. To turn it off, you just simply push it back in. Now, this pull out and push in control means it's very unlikely that you're going to turn your illumination on when it's in the back of a car, or when you're moving around. However, if for some reason you did leave your illumination on and then you go put the rifle in the case, there's a real good chance that when you do, it's going to close and shut the illumination off for you. You have to remove the turret housing to adjust the brightness. It's inside. However, on our model, we didn't see any reason to adjust the brightness at all. It was just fine from the factory in just about every condition I tried it in. What you have to remember with the brightness settings is you only want the reticle just bright enough to overcome the ambient light. You do not want it so bright that in dark conditions it's blooming and it makes it hard for you to see the target. What I found with the standard setting from the factory is if the ambient light is bright enough to overcome the reticle, then the ambient light is bright enough to actually see the reticle without the illumination on. So it kind of is at that perfect median setting. I regret that we don't have the time to pull this off and do a video on how to adjust the illumination, but we may look into that in the future. Now, moving further onto the scope, we have our 50mm objective. I think the 50mm objective is a good middle of the road. When you start getting into 56mm and larger, you start to really mess with your mounting options. You have to bring the scope up higher and higher and higher to clear the barrel. So I like the 50mm objective lens. So it's a good option. It brings in enough light or allows enough light transmission that you're not limited by it. But if you're in situations where you need more light transmission than the glass and the 50mm objective in this scope gives you, I think you're now at the point where you're going to need to switch over to active night vision devices. So 50mm lens, I think, is a really good choice. The overall weight on the scope is acceptable. It's not overly heavy. It's where you would expect it for this kind of scope. The overall build quality inspires quite a bit of confidence in it. There is nothing on this scope that was half-assed. Everything is precise, everything is well thought out, and everything is well machined. Little things like the scallops on the knurling on the turrets is very nicely done. It is aggressive enough that it's going to offer you a good purchase if you're wearing gloves or if your hands are muddy or sweaty or, God forbid, bloody. You'll still be able to get up there and crank those turrets. The same knurling is carried over through all the controls. One of the things that I definitely want to point out that obviously Nightforce is very proud of, when you get most rifle scopes, you turn them over, there's a flat on the bottom of the turret housing. When you look at the turret housing, that is where they engrave the serial number and the information, and usually that's where you'll find made in China or made in Japan or made in wherever. Well, Nightforce decided that on this scope, they're going to print it right up here on the top of the main tube, and it says Made in USA. So the Nightforce F1s are actually made in the USA. So it's a very nice feature. You see each Nightforce scope comes with an inspection sticker on it. Now I will make a comment on the inspection stickers. Guys, when you get these scopes, take the inspection sticker off. I don't know why everybody seems to leave those on. You see them at the range. It's just a goofy sticker to tell you that somebody actually picked this up, inspected it, signed their initials, and took ownership in their job. Now that's nice to know, but when it gets to me, peel the sticker off. The only reason the sticker is still on this one is because it has to go back to Nightforce. So I'm leaving it in the condition that they sent it to me in. But if you get the scope, peel the sticker off. It's a rifle scope. Okay, it's not a collector's item. Very, very good rifle scope. Talk to you about the reticle real quick. This scope has the MLR 2.0 reticle in it. That is a milradian based reticle, and it is the improvement over the MLR reticle in that it has numbers marking out the lines. This is very important to me because I have gotten lost in the hash marks before on a reticle when I'm trying to quickly transition between targets. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. And it's nice, instead of having to take the time to count your hash marks, to be able to just look at the number in the reticle. It really only comes into play when you're really moving fast, but it's a very nice thing to have and very nice thing to see. The MLR 2.0 is a clean reticle. It doesn't have a lot of extra stuff to distract your eyes. The center of the crosshair is what is illuminated. Unfortunately, they did not choose to illuminate the numbers. I have no idea why that is. I don't know if it's a design issue, but the numbers do not illuminate when you turn the reticle on, only the crosshair. So you're back to counting hash marks if you have to do unknown distance or multiple engagements at night. Not a deal breaker, I wish they would have illuminated the numbers as well as the crosshair itself. To make the reticle better, what I would like to see is I'd like to see windage hold-off points on the lower vertical stadia line. I call it the Christmas tree. I really like Christmas tree dots coming off the bottom because it gives me definite hold points when we step out. If they put that in there, I think the reticle would be absolutely spot on. I think this would be a perfect dual purpose scope for the law enforcement shooter that also likes to shoot tactical matches. As is, I think it is an absolutely, it's about as close as you can come to a perfect law enforcement sniper scope. It's durable, it's accurate. We took it out to the range and we ran our tracking drills with it, and it tracked perfectly. We had no problem spinning the turrets up and down and getting it back on target. That worked just fine. So if you are a law enforcement sniper or you're a law enforcement administrator looking to outfit your snipers, the Nightforce F1 is good to go. It is definitely a thumbs up on this scope for that purpose. If you're a tactical shooter, it's going to be great. It will work for you. 15 power is not limiting on the top end. I know we're pushing the limit there. A lot of guys are going 20, 21 power on the top end. I'm a power hog. I like more power, but 15 power is not going to limit you, and the durability and the other features that you get in the scope are great. I will be very happy when they bring out this same feature set in a scope with a wider magnification range, but I also have a sneaking suspicion that in a wider magnification range you're also going to see a higher price point. So bear that in mind. You always have to pay for what you get. Excellent scope, perfect for its price point. it is highly recommended. If you guys are looking at it, go ahead and pick one up. I do not think you will be disappointed. Now, on the glass clarity on this scope, everybody wants to talk about glass clarity. It is extremely clear glass. It is great for its price point. It is a bright sight picture. When compared to other scopes in this similar price point, the Nightforce, to my eye, has a brighter sight picture. The colors are still accurate. It still has good contrast, but it just seems like it's a little brighter. That's a great thing. Glass clarity is going to be a personal preference issue, though. I've taken shooters before and lined them up and looked them through a wide array of scopes, and different guys have different preferences on what they think the best clarity is. And it really doesn't have a whole lot to do with the resolving power of the optics. It has more to do with what you find pleasing to your eye. Rarely ever do we take these out and actually line them up on optical charts and compare them side to side, just because the logistics of the thing. I don't have the ability to get $50,000, $60,000 worth of rifle scopes in and run them on an optical chart on the same day at the exact same time. I wish I did. Anybody wants to sponsor that, please let us know. We'll set that up. But overall, the NXS F1 is an excellent rifle scope. I would love to keep this thing, but it's got to go back to Nightforce. So we'll be boxing it up and sending it back to them, and I hope you found this review helpful. Go ahead and stay tuned, and we'll take you over to the range and show you what this scope did. We've shot our tracking test, and what we did is we got zeroed up on this target down here. You'd disregard this shot and this shot up here. These were during the zero process, since we've never had this scope mounted on this rifle before. We had to bore sight it first, found out the laser bore sighter method really doesn't work any better than our previous method, so we just went ahead and sighted through the bore and got things lined up. Got pretty good zero going on. Used a few extra rounds than I like to normally use, just to confirm that we were on. What we did then is we measured the distance from this target to this target here through the reticle. Then we dialed our correction on. We then put the center of the crosshairs back on this target and fired a shot. That shot ended up right here, which is about where I expected it to be. Not the greatest accuracy in the world, but that's more than likely me and not the system. I then measured the distance from the center of this target to the center of this target here and dialed in the correction. Now, when I fired that shot, I ended up over here. Didn't quite feel right, but it felt like a good shot, so I went ahead and loaded another one and fired a second shot, and that ended up just below it. Well, that confused me a little bit, so I went ahead and dialed all the corrections off. I figured maybe I just misread or something. Came back here, fired a shot, adjusted, fired another shot here, which I ended up right on the edge of the shoot and see. Measured over, and realized that because this target was so far over from this one, I was out on the small 0.2 of a mil scale on the edge of the reticle, and I was just misreading it. When I realized what I'd done and read the correction correctly, dialed it in correctly, and fired, I actually center punched this one. So what this tells me is no matter how advanced the gear is, if the idiot pulling the trigger can't read the reticle correctly, it's not going to do you any good. So make sure you get a little experience with the gear before you come out and you test it. But after running the tracking test here, I see that the adjustments on the turrets correspond very well with the reticle. They're tracking one for one, so you're good to go. If you see a miss on a target downrange, you can measure and dial your correction, and that'll get you on, as long as you're reading the reticle correctly. Don't do like I did. What we did next, I come down to the shoot and see down here at the bottom, and we did a vertical test. A little bit different than I've done before, but it was something I saw Frank Golly over in Sniper's High do, so I figured I'd give it a shot. And basically what I do is I fire a shot on the target, then I crank the reticle, or crank the elevation turret up one turn, and then come back down. For the high-speed turrets on the Nightforce, that was 10 mils. So I dialed up 10 mils, came back down 10 mils, and fired another shot. I then dialed up 20 mils, came back 20 mils, hitting the ZeroStop, fired another shot. Then I dialed the last shot all the way up to the extent of the turret's elevation travel, then back down to the hard stop and fired another shot. We're grouping right on top of each other, just right on the ragged edge of what my accuracy potential is. So I'm not shooting the greatest today, but I'm shooting well enough to see that the equipment is working just fine. So you can be sure that if you have to take that long shot and crank all the way back out to the end of your turret's elevation travel, make the shot, and then come back in and dial back to 0 for a close shot, then when you come back on 0, that scope's going to be back on 0. So that was the intent of that drill, and I think it performed admirably. So far, on all the tests that we've tried out here today, the scope has performed exactly as I would expect it to from the quality that Nightforce puts out. If you've liked this review video, please click that thumbs up button below. If you dislike the video, please leave me a comment and tell me why. If you've got any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments section below. If you are a subscriber, thank you. If you're not a subscriber, please click the subscription button above. Subscribing allows YouTube to let you know when we release new review videos. It doesn't cost you anything, it is totally free, and we won't send you junk mail, we promise.